Good evening. In today's session, let's discuss regarding Narasimham committee recommendations. Very popular committee with respect to banking sector reforms. So, what are all the recommendations that are given by Narasimham committee? Let's try to understand. But I would like to tell you one thing here. We have two Narasimham committee reports. One committee was appointed in the year 1991. Another committee was appointed in the year 1998. And for both the committees, same M. Narasimham was the chairman. And you have to be very clear. So by looking at the standard of the examination, tomorrow there may be a question regarding which of the following are the recommendations of a Narasimham committee. Clear? Number one. Number two, they may be very specific with respect to the recommendations that are given by committee 1 and the recommendations that are given by committee 2. Because the standard of the questions, standard of the examination is increasing, I am just giving you a hint so that you will be very cautious when you are watching the class, when you are taking the notes and when you are revising your own notes. And especially you should be more cautious when you are answering the questions in the examination. Am I clear? So please make it very clear for yourself that there is a Narasimham committee 1 and a Narasimham committee 2, and this same Narasimham was the chairman for first committee and also the second committee. Clear? So now let's look at this, the banking sector reforms. So when it comes to, any country rather, banking sector is considered to be the backbone. If there are any problems with respect to banking sector, that will affect the whole economy very badly. So this is the experience throughout the world. This is the global experience, and India is no exception. And when it comes to 1980s and 1990s, India faced acute economic crisis we have discussed. That is the reason why India has pledged its gold, lots of tons of gold to this IMF. This also we have discussed in the earlier classes. So during that particular time, India has opened its economy, and that was the major economic reforms in India. And during those reforms, India wanted to reform almost every sector that is present in India. And one such sector is banking sector. In order to give recommendations with respect to the banking sector, committee has been appointed under the chairmanship of M. Narasimham. And what exactly that committee has given the recommendations, let's try to understand. We'll also see what are the differences between Narasimham committee 1 and Narasimham committee 2. Clear? Important for the examination. Right. Let's have a look at this, and before we go ahead further, let me show you one question. We'll look at the question, we'll answer the question, then we'll be moving ahead, and that question is also related to our topic banking sector, and to be very specific, this question is related to Narasimham committee. Clear? Now let's look at this. So look at this. If you look at very closely and clearly, you can see that. Let's read the question. Consider the following statements. 1, 2, 3. 3 statements are given, and statements are lengthy. Don't worry if the statements are looking lengthy. If the question itself is looking lengthy, don't just worry in the examination. Fine, and those questions will be much simpler rather. Clear? Look at this. So when it comes to Narasimham, one committee was appointed to study. Important one, look at this. Why Narasimham one committee was appointed? Clear? Basically, at that time it was called Narasimham one committee. No, it was not called like that. But after another committee has been appointed in the year 1998, then we said Narasimham committee 1 and Narasimham committee 2 only to distinguish the between these two. That's it. That is the only thing. So Narasimham 1 committee was appointed. Why it was appointed? To study all aspects relating to the structure, organization, functions and procedures of the financial systems and to recommend improvements in their efficiency and productivity. Very, 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 very important one. Once a committee is appointed, let it be any committee, my dear friends, once a committee is appointed, that committee is appointed to look into the existing issues and it should understand what are the problems. Accordingly, that committee will give the recommendations to the government. Final decisions will be taken by the government and those decisions will be implemented by the government. But whenever you are discussing about a committee, committee suggestions are always advisory. That is the reason why committees are considered to be advisory in nature. Ultimate decisions are taken by the government. Clear? But when it comes to statement A, this is the purpose for which it has been appointed. Hence, statement A is correct. Because statement A is correct, I can remove option 2. That is not my answer. You know the logic, right? B. Narasimham 1 committee submitted its report to the finance minister in November 1991. It was tabled in the parliament on 17th December 1991. This is also correct, right? So when Narasimham 1 committee report has been submitted, when it has been tabled in the parliament, but whom do you submit the report, my dear friends? Remember this very clearly. Committee will submit the report to that authority which has created the committee. Clear? And when it comes to Narasimham 1 committee, it was appointed by then Finance Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh. Clear? And that is the reason why the committee, after studying, it has submitted the report to then Finance Minister Shri Manmohan Singh. Clear? Very, very important. Later it has been tabled in the parliament for the purpose of discussion. So statement A is correct. Statement B is also correct. And when it comes to statement C, Narasimham 2 committee was tasked with the progress review of the implementation of the banking reforms since 1992, with the aim of further strengthening the financial institutions of India. Very, 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 very important one. Narasimham committee was appointed to look into the problems that were existing at the time and suggest recommendations accordingly. So those recommendations were discussed in the parliament, accepted, and the government has implemented. But when you are implementing certain suggestions, so that is nothing but the reforms. Reforms are for betterment. But later in the year 1998, the government wanted to know how exactly these reforms are giving the fruits, right? So when you implement something, so definitely you will see a change in the functionality. But how better the functionalities are, in order to look into the functioning of the recommendations that were given by Narasimham 1 committee, Narasimham 2 committee has been appointed. And you look at the recommendations, implementation, and monitor the change, and also suggest some recommendations to the government of India with respect to further strengthening the banking system and financial system in India. For that purpose, Narasimham 2 committee has been appointed. Am I clear? Very, 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 very important. So here A, B, C all are important. See, my dear friends, I would like to suggest something to you. Please listen to me very, very carefully. Alright? Just give me a minute. So now, what are these? What is that suggestion I would like to give you? So that suggestion, and ultimately you have to decide whether to follow my suggestion or not. But I request you to follow my suggestion so that you will be getting more marks in the examination. Like in which year Narasimham 1 committee has been appointed. Okay, fact. In which year Narasimham 2 committee has been appointed. That is also fine. Alright, so these are the points which are very, very general in nature. You have to know when it has been appointed and who appointed, Everything you should be very, very clear. But that is not enough for the standard examinations of today. Right? So you have to think in those lines why Narasimham committee has been appointed and what are the recommendations that are given by the Narasimham committee. One, and after you implement, what are the changes that you have seen. All these are important for the examination. Why Narasimham committee 2 has been appointed, what is the purpose, and what are the recommendations that are given by Narasimham 2 committee, and what is the meaning of each recommendation that is important for you in the examination. That is the reason why some people will get less marks, and those people are the people who read the subject superficially. And some people will be happy by knowing 1991 Narasimham 1, 1998 Narasimham 2. Right? So that is not enough. That is not enough for the examination that you are preparing for. You have to have the clear-cut clarity on everything, whatever you are reading. It does not mean that you have to learn complete 100%. But you will give an attempt to learn 100%, and finally you will be getting marks so that you will be securing a job. That is our intention. Am I clear? So you have to give your best in the examination. That is the reason why superficial reading will not be helpful to you to be successful in the examination. Clear? Am I clear? So here we understood Narasimham 1, Narasimham 2, why Narasimham 1 committee has been appointed, what are the recommendations that have been given, what right that we will be looking at now. What are the recommendations, and why Narasimham 2 committee has been appointed, who appointed, and why it has been appointed. So now we are very clear. So obviously our answer should be ABC, and it should be option 4 without any hesitation, without any doubt. Am I clear? So now let's check whether our answer is correct or not. It should be correct. It should be 100% correct. That's it. Option 4 is our answer. Am I clear? Next, let's go ahead. Look at this. Recommendations of the Narasimham committee, meaning Narasimham committee 1. Look at this. Banks are considered to be the backbone of any economy. During 1980s, Indian economy was going through a series of economic crises, including balance of payment crisis. This point we have already discussed when we discussed regarding the economic reforms of 1991. Why all of a sudden India went ahead? Why then Prime Minister Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao? Why then Finance Minister Shri Manmohan Singh? So why they were in a hurry to formulate the reforms and implement with urgency? All that we have discussed, and you also know what is the meaning of the balance of payment, what happened in the year 1991, what India did, and how we have recovered. Everything I have discussed in the earlier classes. Please go through those classes if anybody has missed it. Clear? Next. From the near depletion in foreign reserves in mid 1991, I told you already, we had just 2 weeks for the payment for the import bills. Right? So we can meet the import bill only for a period of 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, India will not have any money with respect to, paying for the import bill. That was the time where the government of India, headed by late Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao, took a very, very, very bold decision and introduced the largest economic reforms in India called LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization. Clear? Recollect all the points. Right? And from 1991, with the near depletion foreign reserves, to become one of the largest economies in the world by the year 2011. India has come a long way, right? So with a huge crisis in 1991, we became one of the largest economies in the world by the year 2011. So meaning within a span of 20 years, India could regain So that all because of the revamping, meaning introduction of the reforms. Am I clear? And today we are very proud to announce that India is the fifth largest economy in the world. Fifth largest economy in the world, meaning there are only four countries above India with respect to large economies. Even we have pushed UK to the next position, right? So India is at fifth position, UK is at the sixth position. After a minute, I will show you these points. Kindly have a look at this now. So this is regarding, like if you look at the last point, one of the major contributions in that journey has come from the banks. Clear? Of course, every sector helped India to regain its economy, and one of the important sectors is banking sector. Clear? Now look at this. So when it comes to the latest data, my dear friends, latest data, April 2024, right? At number one position, meaning the largest economy in the world, is United States of America, followed by China, followed by Germany, Japan, and India. Very, 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 very important. In the examination, they may ask you to write down the largest economies in the world in chronology. Is that okay? At the highest level, you have America, United States of America, followed by China, our neighbor, and followed by Germany, followed by Japan, and we are at the fifth position, India. Am I clear? And UK has been pushed down to sixth position. Very, very important. And another important point for you, which you already know this one, GDP. This is all based on GDP data. What is GDP? This serves as a key metric for assessing the magnitude of a nation's economy. This is the point which learnt during our first session, first class of Indian economy. Is that okay? So a country's strength is measured by, the so-called GDP. Is it clear? Next, the conventional approach for gauging a country's GDP involves the expenditure method. Again, you know what exactly is this? Wherein the total is derived by aggregating expenditure on fresh consumer goods, new investments, government outlays, and the net value of exports. Very, 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 very important, right? Probably you might have read, today's newspaper. According to that, our exports has been increased. That's a good sign. But it is not that good because our imports also increased very largely. So there is a huge difference between India's exports and India's imports even today also. That is the reason why the government has to be very careful, take large number of measures to see that there is a balance between the exports and imports. Otherwise, what will happen? India has to pay more for import bill. In order to pay more for import bill, you have to have large number of foreign exchange reserves. Am I clear? Right? Next. Next one. Let's go ahead. Simple, right? So this is the data of April 30th, 2024. This will be the data that will continue till you complete your examination. At number one position, you have United States of America, right? So look at this USD, right? Number two, China. Number three, Germany. Number four, Japan. Number five, India. I want you to remember up to here. That's it. Is that okay? But if you can remember up to 10, that will be really good. Clear? At sixth position, you have United Kingdom, followed by France, Brazil, Italy, and Canada. That's it. Right? So today, India's economy is much higher than, if you look at this, UK, France, Brazil, Italy and Canada. That's the reason why we are at the fifth position, and Indian government is taking the measures so that we will be improving our rank. Kindly remember this one. Next, look at this. India has both public and private sector banks. Yes, we know. As India liberalized its economy in 1991, it was felt that the banks were not performing efficiently. That was the reason, right? So that is the reason why, at that time we had large number of public sector banks, and 90% of the credit is coming from, public sector banks. But the efficiency was not good, productivity was not good, people were not happy, right? But the employees are enjoying their salaries in the public sector banks. Clear? That is the reason why. So the first step that was taken through the reforms was to go for the privatization of the banks. Clear? So during the economic crisis, right, it was recognized that banks have a crucial role to play in the economy, and hence banking sector had to be more competitive and effective, right? Come what may, if you look at the whole economic crisis, banking sector has to play a positive role and a vibrant role, effective and productive role. Unfortunately, that was missing. That was the reason why it was felt that there is a necessity to introduce reforms in Indian banking sector. Clear? For that reason, then Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh set up Narasimham Committee to analyze India's banking sector and recommend reforms. Very, 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 very important. Clear? This committee has been established for the purpose of looking to the crisis and give the recommendations so that will lead to reforms in the banking sector. Clear? So meaning why the committee was appointed. That is important for your examination point of view. Am I clear? Now, let's go ahead. Look at this. So the committee was set up under the chairmanship of M. Narasimham. Full name is Maidavolu Narasimham, and he was the 13th governor of RBI during 77. Clear? Please remember, right? He was the, former governor of RBI, Reserve Bank of India. Is that okay? And there was another committee, another Narasimham committee, this time under the finance ministry. At the time finance minister was, P. Chidambaram as the finance minister, headed by Narasimham, which was formed in the year 1998. 91, during the time of Dr. Manmohan Singh as the finance minister, he appointed a committee called Narasimham Committee. Again, same Narasimham has been appointed, and another committee has been constituted in the year 1998. At the time, P. Chidambaram was the finance minister of India at the time. Please remember. So the first committee was set up in 1991 and referred to as Narasimham Committee 1, and 1998 committee is known as the Narasimham Committee 2. Am I clear? That is the reason why I told you earlier also, you have to be very clear with the who appointed Narasimham Committee 1 and what was the year, who appointed Narasimham Committee 2 and what was the year. So you have to be very clear with these things. Clear? Next, let's go ahead and discuss more points under this one. Look at this. So Narasimham Committee 1, recommendations for the growth of the banking sector. So to improve the productivity, to increase the effectiveness, this committee was appointed to give the recommendations. It recommended that a 4-tier hierarchy for the Indian banking system with 3 or 4 major public sector banks at the top and the rural development banks for agriculture activities at the bottom. Meaning this committee has recommended the 4-tier structure. So this is called 4-tier hierarchy. At the higher level you keep the public sector banks, right, 3 to 4 public sector banks, and at the lowest level you keep the banks for the purpose of rural development, that is for rural development and also agriculture development. So this is the recommendation, one of the recommendations given by Narasimham Committee 1, right. This committee also has given the recommendation regarding a quasi autonomous body under RBI for supervising banks and financial institutions. RBI is there, right? So in order to make RBI more effective, let's create another autonomous body under the RBI so that it will become more effective, right? Reduction in statutory liquidity ratio, SLR, very important, right? Hope you remember we have discussed regarding SLR, right? And the recommendation is to reduction of SLR. Now just to think over, if you reduce SLR, what will happen, right? If you reduce SLR, the amount of money that is available with the banks will be more. When banks have more money, then banks can send more money into the market, right? During the time the business establishments and the people will take more money. That will strengthen the Indian economy, that will lead to economic growth in India. Very important. That is the reason why, so right, which committee gave a recommendation for reducing the SLR? It was the Narasimham Committee 1. SLR, right? We have discussed about CRR, we have discussed about SLR, we have discussed about the what happens if it is increased, what happens if it is decreased. Everything we have discussed. Kindly recollect this one, and you should also be able to link the points like this. Why Narasimham Committee has recommended for reduction of SLR? Because if you reduce SLR, more money will be available with the banks, and banks will be in a position to send more money into the market. That will be leading to the right, so the economic growth, more economic growth. Am I clear? Next, it said that reaching of 8% capital adequacy ratio. This is another important recommendation that is given by this Narasimham Committee. Like, what is this capital adequacy ratio? For example, known person Vijay Mallya, 9,000 crores loan, he ran away from the country, right? So like this, you may be knowing, some of the names are also there. So these people, they have taken the loans and they ran away. So obviously these are all called NPAs, non-performing assets. As the NPA is increasing, then it will have negative consequences on the banking system and the whole economy. That is the reason why, so you have to try to restrict the non-performing assets. That is the reason why it recommended for reaching the 8% of the capital adequacy ratio. How do you do this? This is the ratio which determines the bank's capacity to meet time liabilities and other risks such as credit risk. For example, let me tell you, you went to a bank and you have deposited some 10 lakhs, right? So your money is there in the bank, and the bank will pay you the interest. But how the bank will pay the interest? Whatever the money that you and others deposited in the bank, that money has to be sent into the market, and the bank will earn interest, and the principal will also come back, so that bank will be in a position to pay back your money along with the interest, right? But what may happen, like this, like you, so many people may be there, but some industrialists like Vijay Mallya, as I told you, so they have taken the money and ran away, right? If they are running away with the money is not coming to the bank. So if the money is not coming, interest is not coming, how the bank will be in a position to pay you? Right? Hope you got it. Right? And how the bank will meet the time liabilities? So whatever you have deposited, that should be, paid back to you on demand. Net demand liability, time liability, I have explained you. If the money is not coming to the bank, how do the bank pay to you? How do the bank pay to others? So that is leading to, a crisis. That is the reason why, so you have to create your own assets, and you have to manage to pay the time liabilities, and that is called the capital adequacy ratio. Am I clear? Very, 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 very important one. Right? In the most simple formulation, a bank's capital is the cushion for potential losses and protects the bank depositors and other lenders. Very, very, very important. This capital adequacy ratio, CAR, is used as a cushion. In case of any eventuality, bank should be able to pay to its customers. Bank should be able to pay to its depositors. This is the very, very, very important point. Am I clear? Next. Hope you are getting this. Right. Next is the deregulation of interest rates. So that what will happen, if you make the interest rates flexible, more money will be entering into the market. Clear? You know the meaning of that. Full disclosure of bank accounts and proper classification of assets. So today, every bank is flexible. It is announcing, its profits and losses. But during those times, there was so much of rigidity, no so much of a transparency like today it was existing at the time. And the recommendation was given for full disclosure with respect to bank accounts. Clear? Similarly, setting up of the asset reconstruction fund. So these are all the recommendations that are given by, Narasimham Committee 1. Right? So next comes the Narasimham Committee 2, and why this committee has been appointed. Please make note of this one. This committee is also called Banking Sector Committee. Very, 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 very important. Right? So this is also called Banking Sector Committee, and the task of this committee was to review the progress. Very, 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 very important. Narasimham Committee 2 has been appointed to look into the functioning of those reforms that were introduced after the recommendations of Narasimham 1 committee. So review the progress of the implementation of the reforms and suggest a design for further strengthening the sector. Already recommendations were implemented. Reforms are being carried on. In the year 1998, government appointed Narasimham Committee 2. So you look into the earlier reforms, review it, understand the situation, and give recommendations to the government for further strengthening of the banking sector. Am I clear? So this is the purpose why the Narasimham Committee 2 has been appointed. Look at this. So what are the major recommendations? So I would like to tell you once again, my dear friends, that you have to be very clear with the recommendations given by Committee 1 and Committee 2. Is that okay? So they may give you some recommendation like, strong banking system, narrow banking. Who recommended this? So they will give you Narasimham 1, Narasimham 2. At the time, I don't want you to get confused. Am I clear? Next. So when it comes to the Narasimham Committee 2 recommendation, it is recommending for stronger banking system. It recommended for the merger of major public sector banks to boost international trade. This is very, very important. If you have so many public sector banks over there, and each is working in its individual capacity, then how do you and when do you compete with the international banking system? That is the reason why one recommendation that has been given by this committee is to merge public sector banks so that you will be competing at the international level. And in the earlier class also I have discussed with you with respect to so many mergers, especially with respect to SBI and its associated banks, including Bharatiya Mahila Bank. They all got merged into, SBI, and it became the largest public sector bank in India, one of the leading banks at the international level. And all began because of the recommendations of the Narasimham committee. And it is not easy to merge the banks, right? So, not to sign a paper and say that this bank is merged into SBI. No, you have to look at the pros and cons also, because each bank has got the right, this non-performing assets. But how do you handle all these things? Everything is really important. Clear? However, the committee warned against the merger of a stronger banks with the weaker banks. If you are merging weaker banks and stronger banks, nothing will happen to weaker bank. It will become stronger. But a stronger bank may become a weaker bank. So, there is a warning from the committee when you are merging. Please take care of everything very, 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 very carefully. Right? Next. So next is the narrow banking. I'll tell you what is this. Some of the public sector banks at the time had a problem of high non-performing assets. For a successful rehabilitation of such banks, the committee recommended narrow banking concept. Meaning, narrow banking concept is a concept that is recommended by Narasimham committee to take care of the banks with respect to non-performing assets, where the banks were allowed to put their funds in short-term and risk-free assets. Very, 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 very important. So banks, instead of giving larger loans to others, you can deposit this money in the short-term deposits, and you also deposit where there is a low risk. This is called a narrow banking, and this recommendation has been given by Narasimham committee too. Very, very, very important one. Next, reform in the role of RBI. So the role of RBI has to be reformed. Is that okay? RBI is considered to be the owner of the banks. RBI is also considered to be the regulator. How come it is possible? That is the reason why the committee felt that RBI being a regulator, it should not have ownership in any bank. Another very important recommendation given by Narasimham committee too. Clear? Am I clear? Next is the government ownership. All the banks belong to government only, right? Minimum 51% is there for the government, right? It recommended that government ownership of banks should be reviewed, as it hampers the autonomy of the banks, resulting in mismanagement. That is the reason why when you are giving autonomy, you should give autonomy, independence, freedom with respect to decision making and spending the money. On the name that it is the government bank, if the government wants to interfere every time, that will lead to mismanagement, that will promote inefficiency and ineffectiveness and low productivity in the banking system. That is the reason why this committee recommended that government should be away from the banking system, so that the mismanagement can be avoided. This is another recommendation given by Narasimham committee, right? So with respect to non-performing assets, what committee said? The committee wanted banks to reduce the NPAs to 3% by the year 2002. It recommended for the formation of the asset reconstruction funds or asset reconstruction companies. These recommendations led to the introduction of securitization and reconstruction of financial assets and enforcement of security Interest Act of 2002. Because we have an act today, that is because of the recommendations that are given by Narasimham 2 committee. Narasimham 2 committee is not saying that NPS can be avoided. It may not be avoided definitely, but you should bring down to the lowest possible percentage so that you will be protecting your banks, you will be protecting the interest of the customers. Am I clear? Next. Next one. Look at this. So capital adequacy ratio we have discussed. It also proposed the government should raise the capital adequacy ratio norms so that you will be protecting the banks. Foreign banks, it proposed to raise the minimum startup capital to $25 million for the foreign banks from $10 million, so that you will be getting more inflows of dollars into the markets. So this is another recommendation given by Narasimham Committee 2. So look at this, we have a question now. Look at the question very carefully. This is the question related to Bharatiya Mahila Bank. In the earlier class also we have answered one question with respect to Bharatiya Mahila Bank, which is no more existing. Where is it now? It got merged into State Bank of India, and that came into force on April 1st. April 1st, 2017. Okay, so please remember this. Next, right? So this particular bank, Bharatiya Mahila Bank, this is run exclusively by women and lending exclusively to women. That is the purpose of the bank, Bharatiya Mahila Bank. Clear? So employees are women, right? So this is run by women. That's the meaning of this, right? And lending will be exclusively to women. So only women can take the loans from these banks, and that will lead to, right, the financial empowerment of the women. Very, very, very important. Statement A is correct. Hence I am removing option 2. You know the meaning of this. The bank allowed deposits to flow from everyone. What is the name of the bank? Bharatiya Mahila Bank. Only women can take the loan from here. But statement B is saying that when it comes to the deposits are allowed from everyone. Clear? Very, 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 very important one. This particular statement is also correct. Though it is called Bharatiya Mahila Bank, though it is lending money only to women, it invited, right? The deposits are allowed from anyone, males or females. Clear? Right? Anybody can deposit the money. So statement A is correct. Statement B is also correct. Another very important statement here. India was the third country in the world after Pakistan and Tanzania to have a bank exclusively to benefit women. Is Pakistan the first country to have a women's bank? Yes. Is the Tanzania second? Tanzania was the second country to have a separate bank for women, followed by India, and India is the third country in the world. That statement is also correct. So obviously our answer should be option 4. Writing down, my dear friends, write down all the points very clearly and closely. Is that okay? So our answer should be what? Option 4. That's it. Clear? Got it? So this is with respect to Narasimham Committee recommendations, and we looked at few questions, and that's all for the day, and I will see you in the next session. Clear? And in the description that is given below, my Telegram channel link has been given. Please follow me through that link, so that you'll be getting the updates from time to time. Thank you so much, and I wish you all very, very good luck.